There was a time in America when a trucker could make an honest mistake and pay for it with a warning and a handshake. A burned-out marker light got you a wave into the scale house and a "get that fixed, son." A logbook a little behind got a raised eyebrow. Those days are gone. Today, the same small slip-ups that every driver made in the golden age of trucking can generate fines with 5 digits on them, and a driver doesn't even have to be doing anything an ordinary person would call wrong. We're counting down 17 harmless trucker mistakes that can trigger DOT fines north of $10,000. And number 1 is a mistake that's probably sitting in your side box right now, wrapped in a plastic bag, looking completely innocent. Because that's the pattern with every single one of these. The band hacks, the outlaw tricks, the second log books. Drivers knew those were against the rules. That was the game. But this list is different. This list is the stuff nobody thought about twice. The habits, the shortcuts, the ordinary Tuesday decisions that the enforcement machine quietly turned into violations while nobody was looking. Here's every one of them. What it used to cost, and what it costs now. Number 17. The unplugged radar detector in the glove box. Everybody knows running a radar detector in a commercial truck has been banned since 1994. What most drivers didn't know until it bit them is that you don't have to be using it. A fuzz buster with the cord wrapped around it, buried under the registration paperwork in the glove box of a Freightliner, dead as a doornail, is still a violation the moment a DOT officer opens that compartment during an inspection. The regulation covers possession in the cab, not use. Plenty of drivers bought a detector for the pickup at home, tossed it in the big truck to carry it back from the truck stop, and forgot about it. That forgetfulness shows up on the inspection report, lands on the carrier's safety score, and stacks a fine on top. A dead gadget you forgot you owned, treated exactly like you were running it hot through a work zone on Interstate 40. Number 16. The wrong time zone on your log. For decades, a driver crossing from Central to Eastern Time just wrote down whatever the sun told him. Now every record of duty status has to run on the time zone of your home terminal, no matter where the truck actually is. A driver based in Memphis who logs a Pittsburgh delivery in local time has technically falsified the form. Inspectors call these form and manner violations, and one of them alone is a small fine. But form and manner errors are like mice. Where there's one, there's a nest, and an officer who finds a sloppy log starts pulling threads. Wrong time zone, missing shipping document number, an unsigned page, and suddenly a routine Level 3 inspection at the Tennessee scale house turns into an hour in the inspection lane and a report that follows the driver for 3 years. Number 15. The expired medical card in your wallet. The DOT physical used to be a formality. A country doctor, a stethoscope, and a signature. The card itself was something you renewed when you remembered. Today, an expired medical certificate doesn't just mean a citation at the roadside. In most states, the licensing agency automatically downgrades the CDL itself when the medical certification lapses in the federal system. That means a driver who let his card expire over a long weekend can be operating on an invalid license without knowing it, and driving a commercial vehicle without a valid CDL brings fines that can climb into the thousands, plus the truck parked on the shoulder until a legal driver arrives. All because of a piece of paper the size of a business card, sitting expired behind the fuel receipts. Number 14. Personal conveyance to the truck stop. Personal conveyance was supposed to be simple. Off-duty, load delivered. The workday behind you, you can bobtail to dinner or a motel without burning drive time. But the line between personal use and advancing the load turned out to be razor thin, and enforcement treats it like a tripwire. A driver who runs out of hours at a receiver in Columbus and drives 40 minutes toward tomorrow's pickup, logged as personal conveyance because he was technically heading to a truck stop, has just falsified his record of duty status. That's the same violation category as the old paper comic books, with fines in the thousands and a 10-hour out-of-service order on the spot. The move feels harmless because it feels fair. The driver's out of hours through no fault of his own, the parking lot's full, and he's just trying to find a safe place to sleep. The regulation does not care how fair it feels. Number 13. One blown marker light. There are more than a dozen little amber and red lamps outlining a tractor trailer. And in the old days, a dead one was a maintenance note, not a legal event. Now a single inoperative lamp is a citable violation that goes on the carrier's CSA record. And more importantly, it's an invitation. A burned-out marker light on a trailer rolling through the banning scales in California is the probable cause that turns a drive-by into a full Level 1 inspection. Brakes measured, logs pulled, every strap and chain examined. Ask around any truck stop counter and you'll hear the same story. The light itself cost $50 in fines. The inspection it invited found $800 more. One $3 bulb and the whole day gone. But at least a bulb only costs you a day. This next mistake can cost you the whole truck. Number 12. Trusting a car GPS. This one has destroyed more careers in New York than almost anything else on this list. A driver plugs a destination into a regular navigation app, the kind built for four-wheelers, and the route helpfully sends 73 feet of truck onto the Hutchinson River Parkway, where the stone overpasses were built in the 1930s for automobiles and sit under 9 feet in places. The result is a bridge strike, and New York averages hundreds of them a year. The fines for a commercial vehicle on a restricted parkway stack with the cost of the strike itself, which can run into 6 figures once the trailer roof is peeled back like a sardine can and the parkway shut down through rush hour. The mistake takes 5 seconds, tapping the wrong app on a phone. Veteran drivers keep a truck-specific GPS or a paper atlas on the doghouse for exactly this reason, because the machine that got a Honda home safely for 10 years will happily feed a Kenworth into a stone bridge. Number 11. Skipping the walk-around in the rain. Every driver has done it. It's 2 in the morning outside Cheyenne. It's sleeting sideways, and the pre-trip inspection becomes a glance at the tires from the driver's seat and a silent promise to check everything properly at the next fuel stop. The regulation requires a real inspection, and when defects exist, a driver vehicle inspection report. Skipping it is a violation on its own, with a modest fine. The real cost arrives later. If that truck is involved in a crash and the investigation finds a defect that a proper walk-around would have caught, a soft brake chamber, a cracked spring hanger, the skipped inspection becomes evidence of negligence. Fines turn into liability, and liability in a commercial crash runs into the millions. The 5 minutes saved in the sleet turns out to be the most expensive 5 minutes of a career. And if that sounds bad, keep watching, because the mistakes get smaller from here while the fines get bigger. Number 10. One loose strap. A flatbed hauler running coil steel or lumber knows securement is life and death. But this violation catches dry van and reefer drivers too, because load securement rules apply to everything, including the pallet jack rattling around loose in the back of the box, one strap with a cut exceeding the limit, one chain rated too light for the load, one piece of unsecured equipment, and the truck is out of service until it's fixed, with fines assessed per violation. On a flatbed with a dozen straps, an inspector who finds one bad strap checks all 12, and cargo securement violations carry some of the heaviest CSA weights in the system. Drivers in the golden era threw 2 extra straps over a load out of pride. Today, the government counts them, and the arithmetic always favors the government. Number 9. Topping off from the reefer pump. Every reefer trailer carries its own fuel tank running untaxed off-road diesel, dyed red so the taxman can tell the difference. And on a cold night in a closed fuel island somewhere on Interstate 80, the temptation whispers. The reefer pump is right there. The tractor's below a quarter tank and it's all diesel, right? The IRS calls that tax evasion, and the penalty is $10 per gallon or $1,000, whichever is greater, per tank, per violation. Inspectors at the scales carry dip tubes and test tanks at random, and the red dye lingers in trace amounts long after the fuel itself burned off through the stacks. The part that makes this one truly cruel is the accident scenario. A fuel jockey grabs the wrong nozzle, a farm kid tops off the wrong tank, and the driver who never intended anything is now explaining pink diesel to a federal auditor. Intent is not an element of the offense. The die is, and at least the fuel island gives a man a minute to think it over. The next violation takes about 2 seconds to commit. Number 8. Picking up the phone at a red light. Not texting while flying down the interstate, just picking the phone up. The federal handheld rule for commercial drivers prohibits holding the device at all, even stopped at a light, even to hit decline on a robocall. A driver caught with a phone in his hand faces fines that can climb past $3,000, and the carrier can be hit for more than $15,000 for allowing it. 2 violations and the driver's disqualified for 60 days. 3, and it's 120. In the CB era, a driver held a radio mic in one hand and a coffee in the other from Barstow to Baltimore, and nobody blinked. The mic is still legal today, which is one of the stranger ironies in the rulebook. The phone that replaced it will end your career at a stoplight in Ohio. Number 7. Idling all night for heat. If you caught our last video, you already know the idling laws. More than half the states now cap commercial idling at 5 minutes or less, and the low rumble of 100 diesels running through the night outside Laramie, the sound that used to mean a truck stop was full, is mostly gone. But since that video, the enforcement has gotten stranger, and nowhere more than New York City. There, any private citizen can film your truck idling for a few minutes, upload the clip to the city, and legally pocket a quarter of the fine for turning you in. The ticket starts around $350 and climbs with every repeat, and this is not some hypothetical. A small army of professional complainers now walks Manhattan and Brooklyn with phone cameras, and the most dedicated of them have turned filming parked trucks into 6-figure incomes. The driver never sees a cop and never gets a warning, just a ticket in the mail with a stranger's video attached. So the squeeze is worse than it's ever been. Shut the engine down and freeze in the bunk at 10 below. Or stay warm and fund a bounty hunter's vacation. The big fleets solve it with auxiliary power units, but at 10 grand and up installed, that math is brutal for an owner-operator watching every dime, which is why the cheap fix keeps spreading from truck to truck. It's a thermal bivvy called Terra Shell, a compact sleeping bag with an aluminized lining that bounces your own body heat straight back at you, so the bunk stays livable with the engine dead silent. Nothing to plug in, nothing to fuel, and nothing for a man on the sidewalk to film. It stows down smaller than a soda can and costs less than that first idling ticket. The link's in the description if you want one riding in your side box. Now, the idling crackdown at least gives a driver a fighting chance because a man can see a no idling sign, and these days he can usually spot the guy filming him too. The next mistake happens inside a computer where nobody can see anything at all. Number 6. The unreported ELD glitch. When electronic logging devices took over in December of 2017, drivers were told the machine would handle the paperwork. What they weren't told is that the machine's failures became the driver's responsibility. When an ELD malfunctions, the driver has to reconstruct paper logs, and the carrier has 8 days to repair or replace the unit. Missed that window, keep rolling with a glitchy device, and the violation is treated the same as falsification, with fines in the thousands and the driver placed out of service. The same trap hides in unassigned driving time. A mechanic moves the truck across the yard in Joplin, nobody claims the miles, and those orphan minutes sit in the system looking exactly like a driver hiding drive time. The engine control module records everything, whether anyone's watching or not, and an auditor 2 years later reads those unassigned miles as evidence. The old comic books at least had the decency to burn. The electronic trail never forgets. Number 5. 10 minutes over the 14-hour clock. The 14-hour rule sounds generous until a driver meets the national parking shortage. The clock starts when the workday starts and does not pause for a detention delay at a Georgia warehouse or a full truck stop outside Dallas at sunset. So a driver who spends 45 minutes hunting for a safe place to park and crosses the 14-hour line by 10 minutes while pulling into the last open spot on the row has committed an hours of service violation that the ELD recorded to the second. There's no judgment call, no old-scale master deciding the man clearly did his best. The violation transmits, the carrier's safety score takes the hit, and fines for hours violations can run past $10,000 in serious cases. Drivers in the paper era penciled their way around a 10-minute problem without a second thought. Today, 10 minutes is 10 minutes, and the machine is not sentimental, and the same machine that counts your minutes is also counting your lunch break. Number 4. The missed 30-minute break. Somewhere around hour 8 of driving, the rule says a driver must take a 30-minute break from the wheel. Most drivers take it naturally. Fuel, food, a walk around the truck. But on a day when the appointments stack up and the miles flow easy, it's the easiest requirement in the book to blow straight past. The ELD flags it automatically, the violation writes itself, and a pattern of missed breaks across a fleet is one of the fastest triggers for a full compliance review, where auditors camp in the carrier's office and examine every record they've ever generated. One skipped sandwich stop becomes the loose thread that unravels the whole operation. The old hands find this one almost funny. The government spent decades trying to make drivers stop driving so much, and now it fines them for not taking lunch. Number 3. Failing the roadside English check. This one is new, and it's catching drivers who've run legally for years. The English proficiency requirement sat in the regulations for decades, mostly unenforced. Then, in June of 2025, it went back on the out-of-service criteria, which means an inspector at a New Mexico port of entry can now conduct a roadside interview, and a driver who can't answer questions about his trip and his paperwork in English or can't read the highway signs the inspector points to is placed out of service on the spot. The truck sits. The load sits. The carrier scrambles for a replacement driver at roadside rates, and the violation lands on both records. Whatever a person thinks about the policy, the practical reality for drivers is that a rule everyone ignored for a generation now has teeth, and it arrived with almost no warning for the men and women it hit. Number 2. 300 pounds heavy on one axle. Every driver knows 80,000 pounds gross is the line. What catches good, careful, completely legal drivers is the bridge formula, the axle-by-axle math underneath the gross limit. A load can scale at 78,000 total, comfortably legal, and still come up 300 pounds over on the drives because the freight was stacked wrong in the nose of the trailer, or the driver forgot to slide the tandems after a fuel stop added 600 pounds to the front. Overweight fines in many states scale by the pound, and states like New York and Pennsylvania have written overweight citations bigger than the truck was worth. The old-timers had it easy in one respect. When they ran heavy, they knew they were heavy, and they picked the county roads accordingly. Today's driver can do everything right, load legal, scale legal on gross, and still get a 4-figure ticket at the chicken coop because a pallet sat 2 feet too far forward. The scale doesn't ask about intentions. It weighs. And that brings us to number 1, the undeclared hazmat sitting in your side box right now. Here's the mistake almost nobody sees coming, because it doesn't look like a mistake. It looks like a can of starting fluid. A couple of spare batteries wrapped in a shop rag, a 5-gallon jug of generator fuel for the hunting cabin, a case of aerosol brake cleaner a buddy asked you to bring home, still riding in the plastic grocery bag it came in. Hazardous materials regulations don't just cover placarded tankers hauling chemicals out of Baton Rouge. They cover quantities and materials that ordinary people keep in their garages, and a commercial vehicle transporting them without proper declaration, packaging, and paperwork is hauling undeclared hazmat. The civil penalties for hazmat violations can reach tens of thousands of dollars per violation per day. And if the violation results in injury or serious harm, the ceiling climbs toward $200,000. Drivers have taken 5-figure hits for aerosol cans in a trailer with no shipping papers, for lithium batteries packed wrong, for a jug of gasoline riding where a jug of gasoline has ridden in work trucks since the Eisenhower administration. In the Golden Age, the side box was a man's garage on wheels, full of ether, solvents, spare fuel, and nobody in any scale house in America would have opened it, let alone written a ticket over it. Today it's the single most expensive square footage on the truck. Look at that whole list together and the pattern is hard to miss. The old outlaws broke rules on purpose and knew the price going in. This generation of fines falls on drivers doing their honest best, punished by regulations written faster than any working man can read them, enforced by cameras and computers that never sleep and never cut anybody a break. The highways are safer for some of it, and any old hand will admit that through gritted teeth. But somewhere between the paper log and the electronic one, the job lost the thing that made it bearable. The assumption that a driver was a professional trying to do things right. If you drove in the era before all this, tell us in the comments which of these fines you've seen handed out with your own eyes, and which harmless mistakes we missed, because there are at least 17 more where these came from. And if these stories hit home, hit subscribe, because next time we're covering the way station tricks the DOT doesn't want truckers to know are still legal. Keep the shiny side up.